Hi class, this is lesson 4. Get please your class book test of literature, cornerstone, and go to page 344. Afterwards, get also the sheet I sent you on the chat, the map on James Joyce, because today we talk about this author. James Joyce was born in Dublin. He was Irish and he belonged to a Catholic family. He received an excellent education. He also went to university where he studied modern languages, foreign languages. He studied French, Italian, and Norwegian. He graduated in modern and foreign languages. He traveled a lot around Europe. He met Nora, his wife, in 1904, and he left Dublin with her. They went first to Paris when he met Ezra Pound. They became very close friends. Afterwards, they went to Zurich and then to Pula. In the end, they stopped in Trieste, in Italy, where he met Italo Svevo. They got acquainted. In fact, Italo Svevo was deeply influenced by James Joyce, like James Joyce was deeply influenced by Ezra Pound. In Trieste, he worked as an English teacher, even though he was an heavy drinker. So the couple had problems with money. In 1914, he published his first work, the collection of short stories, Dubliners. The Dubliners is his first prose work, and it is a symbolic and realistic work because his style was still symbolic and realistic. He changed completely. He did a sort of revolution in style in his masterpiece that was published in 1922, the Ulysses. Afterwards, he published also Finnegan's Wake, another novel, in 1939. These two novels must be labeled modernist. So modernist novels. He is known and is remembered as the first real English writer that could be called modernist, even though he was Irish. Dubliners is a collection of 15 stories. It was published in 1914 in London, and all these stories are set in Dublin. So he describes the lives of different people, all living in Dublin, and these people belong to every social class. So we could meet a maid, a music teacher, a clerk, a student. All these stories are linked. This link is between all the characters as well, because you can meet a character in a story and then you can meet him or her again in another story. So there's a sort of unity of experiences. And in these 15 stories, the Dubliners follow the 4 phases of human life. So from childhood, afterwards adolescence, and then the maturity age. Joyce in these stories focuses on specific moments of these characters, of these protagonists. So even though these moments could seem everyday activities, they are pretty deeply important moments for the protagonists, for the characters, because they are important moments during which they understand something very important. Moments of self-awareness. The themes, the two main themes of the Dubliners are paralysis and epiphany. Paralysis is a condition which is characteristic to modern man. So the modern man is paralyzed because he can't move, he can't act. He doesn't manage to act, to react. So this paralysis is a consequence of a frenetic and impersonal city life. The character is frustrated, and the circumstances are stifling. There's lack of motion, lack of action, but also lack of friendship. The man of the beginning of the 20th century was unhappy, was lonely. There was a crisis. So even though they have some desires, they wouldn't fulfill them. So the second theme is epiphany. You know very well that epiphany means revelation. This epiphany is a sudden revelation, is a moment during which they understand something very important. They understand an emblematic truth or a reality. So these epiphanies are moments of profound understanding of the characters, of the protagonists. But also, after these epiphanies, they can't act and they can't react. So they passively continue their lives as before. This is very important. So, to sum up, let's say again, James Joyce was born in Dublin. His family was a Catholic one. He studied foreign modern languages. He studied French, Italian, and Norwegian. He graduated on modern languages. Afterwards, he left Dublin with Nora, his wife. When he met Nora, they decided together to go away, and they traveled around Europe. First, they went to Paris when there was this friend, a beloved friend, who is Ezra Pound, the American poet. Afterwards, they went to Zurich and then to Pula. In the end, they stopped in Trieste, in Italy, where he got acquainted with Italo Svevo. So they became very close friends. Italo Svevo was deeply influenced by Joyce, as Joyce was deeply influenced by Ezra Pound. First publication, The Dubliners, a collection of short stories, 1914. This kind of prose is still symbolic and realistic. So he completely changed. He did a sort of revolution in style in the novels he published afterwards. First, the Ulysses, 1922, and second, the Finnegan's Wake, 1939. So these two novels are labeled modernist. In these novels, he used the two techniques, the two devices we talked about last time, stream of consciousness and interior monologue. So these two devices are the most used by the modernist novelists. So he settled in Trieste, but he had to cope with his drinking habits. So the couple had problems with money. In 1914, the Dubliners, afterwards Ulysses, afterwards the Finnegan's Wake. So he thinks that art has the important social function of increasing people's awareness of their own condition. Recurrent themes, paralysis and epiphany. The style. He adopts a variety of narrative voices, viewpoints and styles so as to give an authentic and lifelike portrayal of his protagonist. Remember that he uses an external narrator, but the stories are told from the point of view of the main character. So, he makes abundant use of symbols, allegories, and classical myths, but his prose is clear, concise, and detached. The events, as we have just already said, are always told from a character's perspective, through interior monologues and free indirect speech. So, the Dubliners is a collection of short stories. They are set in different parts of Dublin, and the characters belong to all the different social classes. There is a unity of experiences, and there is a link between all the characters. They follow the four phases of human life: childhood, adolescence, and maturity age. And the two major themes are paralysis and epiphany, that are linked to the crisis of the man of the beginning of the last century. So there's a lack of action, lack of reaction. The character, the protagonist, can't react. They don't manage to be active. They are passive, and they passively continue with their lives as before, even though they have these kind of epiphanies. So the sudden revelations during which they understand something deeply true or real.